RealTuners Radio.
So, do you want to learn how to tune electronic fuel injection live in person with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops all across the country. Register for these at RealTuners.com. Click on RealTuners Live Classes. For more info or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us at RealTuners LLC on Facebook. Learn how to tune your own standalone EFI systems like Holley, Fuel Tech, Fast, and others on the chassis dyno. And now we've announced new GM, Gen 3, and Gen 4 2-day classes taught by James Short of Shore Tuning. Our classes cover such topics as traction control, individual cylinder tuning on a budget, safe tuning for maximum power, and power adder tuning. Upcoming classes with available seats are as follows. General Motors Gen 3 and Gen 4 factory ECU tuning with HP tuners at Trick Pro Motorsports in Palm Bay, Florida on December 1st and 2nd. And our new advanced standalone tuning for drag racers will debut at Kevin Smith's shop, KSR Performance in Gainesville, Florida on November 17th and 18th. This is a brand new class and Kevin's shop is the place to catch it first. Northern Ohio people, make note, we just opened up our standalone EFI Essentials class at Busher Racing just outside of Norwalk, Ohio, January 19th and 20th. Make your reservations at RealTuners.com. Hey everybody, welcome to RealTuners Radio episode 66. It's Thursday, November 1st, 2018, and we're back after a week off. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight we are skipping the guest speakers and going straight to our usual discussions and taking questions from our audience. Huge thanks to our panel of hosts who are the real MVPs when it comes to keeping this race car on the track. That's John Bewley at Little John's Motorsports Solutions, Tom Sewell at Fuel Injector Development, Scott Evans at Helix Tuning, Bill Fowler at Big Hat Racing, James Short at Shore Tuning, Mark Dahlquist from Throttles Performance, Rye Klump from Clapped Out. I want to thank all these guys for sticking it out with RealTuners and helping us grow. I'm your host and engineer without the paperwork, Scott Clark. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Woohoo! We're back after a week off. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully there's not a huge echo or some stupid audio crap that I'm screwing up. I totally hosed the last show we had, like the first couple of minutes of it. It sucked. Anyway, hopefully got that right tonight. Let me know if it's not. Man, a lot's gone on in the 8 days that we had off. Our last guest, Robin Roberts, was here, and he was helping promote and support the No Prep Nationals in Topeka and Kansas, and it was awesome. I went to that. It was really cool. You should go to that next year. They said they're going to do one next year. They're already sure they're going to do it. So worth checking out the No Prep Nationals. Actually, and a huge congrats to Mr. Roberts because he went all the way to the finals against Lizzie Musey and then red lit and in the finals, but he had her covered. It's if you see that race when they televise it, that's going to be worth watching. He ended up doing really well last weekend at the No Prep Kings. I guess that was their season or series finale for the season, which was interesting. So I know that Larry Larson just narrowly missed the points championship, and Mike Murillo got it. Mike's a good dude. I've met him a couple times. So anyway, just kind of warming it up for the night. So I'll go ahead and bring in the rest of the guys. Guys, can you hear us?
Yeah, what's going on?
Sounds good.
Yep, we hear you fine, and the stream sounds good already.
Somebody make sure that I'm not echoing or doing something stupid. I don't.
You starting to stutter on my end.
Can we answer those questions separately?
Awesome. Okay, cool. So, well, what's new with you guys? I mean, so Bill's at SEMA. Evans lives in Vegas. He just got off work. Who else? We could maybe have Delgado on here in a little bit. He took the information, but he said they were currently looking for a cam gear. They busted a dowel pin or something. A dowel pin broke on, and they had to repair one of their primary motor, I guess, tonight. But anyway, he said he might be on later. What else? Who's got stuff going on? Rye isn't with us tonight because he's on vacation. Loser.
In Aruba.
I'm not just drinking during audio glitches. I'm drinking because I have a headache and I want to get rid of it.
Right.
That might postpone it till tomorrow morning.
That's an interesting headache medicine.
I'm not even going to talk about the foo-foo drink I'm drinking tonight. I'm not going to start that mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
It took like 7 months for that Pizzeria thing to go away. It's t-shirts, stickers.
It still needs to happen.
Right.
The meme, I swear to God, the meme of the giant pizzeria in the back of my truck was the most epic thing to come out of that.
Oh no, you guys are creative. It's a little scary. I try to sit here and be careful. You know, for me, it's just, hey, some dude in the basement. But you realize there's like, I think, what do we have, 110,000 unique downloads plus at the 1 year mark a little while ago. I haven't even looked at the stats since like July. But and it's interesting. I go to these classes. I did one in Chicago this last weekend, which was awesome. Good time. Tom Hogshead from Drag Week. There's a handful of Drag Week guys there. It was really cool. And definitely doing one again. But anyway, it's interesting how this stuff gets out to those guys, to the rest of the world. And I'm like, have to explain my behaviors, actions, or things that are said here in front of a group of people. But it's cool. At least they're all gearheads. Did I lose you guys?
No, some of
just being super quiet. Wow, that's super quiet.
No.
Like on a freakish level. Okay. So, man, if everybody's kind of in SEMA mode, Mr. Fowler, are you out there? Are you able to talk to us? Or is he sitting at Piro's having dinner?
No, I'm not there yet. I'm in a rather noisy spot. I had to wait about an hour just to be able to get on the tram. So now that I can, it's still a little noisy in the background. So I'm just trying to get out of the main deal here.
No problem. We can do our SEMA discussion a little bit later, but SEMA's going on this week. You can get on Facebook or anywhere and see the bazillion. That's the best thing about social media is like, wow, I don't have to go wade through the crowd. I can get some really good pictures guys are taking of everything there is to see out there. Although you should go do it a couple times. You should go do SEMA at least a couple times. You can't see it all in one shot, but in 1 week or whatever, in one series of 3 days.
You can. You just won't for any of it.
Oh, I guess, who was it? I was with the Blueprint guys back in 2012, and someone did the math. I think maybe it might have been 2010 or something, somewhere around there. I know if you went to every booth that was listed in the catalog with the available seconds that the show was open per day, you had something like 11 and a half seconds at each booth, right?
Cow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think it's shrunk
you just
a little
wouldn't
bit
remember
since
it all.
then. Yeah, you could technically do it, but man, I get out there and my little Fitbit starts cranking up 18, 19,000 steps in a day, and it's this fat guy's knees are done.
It's like daily for me.
Right, I know. It's not the IBS, I promise.
Now, Scott, didn't you do some work a little while back for the School of Automotive Machinists?
I haven't done. What have I done for them? No, I didn't do any training or anything formal like that. But my buddy Chris Bennett used to teach there, and I used to get on the phone with him all the time. And then I also competed with them at Engine Masters Challenge.
They're bringing a Copo Camaro to the high school that I work at Monday.
Sweet.
I'm curious to see what that's going to be like. They're going to demonstrate.
Is it that new concept electric version?
I don't know which one it is. The automotive shop teacher came to me this afternoon and just told me they would be there Monday. So we're going to take all of our machine shop students down there every period and be part of the presentation and talk to them about that. So I'll know more next week. See how it's going to be. Looking forward to it.
Oh, I was just playing off the fact that GM is talking about a new electric Copo that today's news kind of stuff.
They're doing more than talking about it. There's one sitting in the booth at SEMA.
Are they running it? Oh yeah. I mean, are they making passes with that thing yet? Because I'll tell you what, go to an EDRA event sometime. Yeah. Aren't there electric vehicles running 5s in the quarter already? I mean, I would make fun of them.
Oh, yeah.
They just need to add it. They need to require a damn PA system loud enough to simulate an internal combustion engine audio. Yeah. That would make it go over a little easier.
Go ahead, John.
I don't know if they've ran it yet or not, but it was on display.
With that being said, electric vehicle is a blind man's worst nightmare because, if you're starting to cross traffic, you can't hear it coming. So there's supposed to be some government legislation to they have to have some kind of noise, emitting below 15 miles an hour or something. But I'm not sure if they ever went.
Deer whistlers on the front?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you know what? That's like a huge deal. If you're blind, yeah. Especially if you're blind, coming slow and sneaking up on you. Sound like it's like a golf cart. But now they got to make them beep or do something. That sucks.
Yep, they're gonna make them do something below 15 miles an hour. But been making some good progress on my Corvette. We get ready. We're gonna paint it soon. Hopefully by 1st of December, we're gonna take it to the paint booth. We actually, everything is unbolted off the car. We're painting the rockers and the door jambs here at the house, and then everything is unbolted. We got the Z06 quarter panels in and just chipping away at my deal. So it's come on pretty good.
That's awesome to hear.
That is awesome. See that getting done. You're making a lot of progress on that car, man. Chipping away at it pretty steady. I'm impressed. I follow it on Facebook. Yeah. Tragedy of Triumph Racing. There. Yep.
It ain't as fast as you want, but like I tell folks, you're trying to build a land speed car with a disability check. It's pretty rough. You just got to do what you can do and go take every achievement as a plus,
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's still coming out looking really good, man. It's looking like a professional shop's putting it together, so that's good. Used to take your time, talent, and resources. You got to accommodate if you're low on the resources, and you can make up for it and with time and talent, which you certainly have. So, I'm sitting here trying to fire up the Facebook messages so I can, or the Facebook of the video, so I can get in the questions. But if you guys see some questions you want to start taking, man, I'm all about it.
Yes.
Get it done. 43 comments already. Holy crap.
Yeah, so the Copo was in the booth, but it had sticker tires on it.
It had what?
I don't know if that means anything, but it was very clean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's made a hit or anything of that nature yet.
Yeah, I am watching you, Mike Perduto. You're too loud, then you're too quiet. We got to let me know if the audio sucks. I'm working on it. So, let's see, man. Fire away some tech questions, you guys. Remember how we used to do this a year and a half ago? We used to just start off answering questions. Now we've become like the Tonight Show of EFI tuning podcasts. Did you guys see anything? I don't know. We don't have Dahlquist on here tonight to watch any of the other chats as well.
I'm trying to get them all loaded up so I can see them.
Yeah, I was going for Facebook.
Issues here. All right, there we go. I got the Mixler up. Got some guys in Australia. Jonathan Coleman logged into Mixler tonight. DBR guys. How fast are they going to go next year?
I don't know.
Who's the air conditioning in that car is going to pick up another 10th? Didn't he still have AC?
I can tell you one thing about that car. That car will never not have air conditioning. He will part it out and sell it if you told him he had to take the air conditioning off of it. Oh yeah, we could talk about the new billboard sized dash from Holly.
Oh man, I didn't know anything about that. It didn't destroy my Facebook feed for the last 96 hours.
It's a bigger version of the current screen with a lot better resolution and wider. It's 12 inches instead of 7. Same basic stuff from what I understand. Just bigger. I mean, there's some added stuff they've done to it, I guess, but they're basically the same thing, just bigger.
Well, I was pretty impressed with the virtual switchboard that they put into it, which is pretty cool. It's got 4 outputs, so you can have it turn lights and stuff on. So now you can almost control the whole car off of that one screen.
Dumb question, but have they made it so that you can use the inputs on the dash? Have they made
Y'all
it so
are
you
talking
can use,
all over each other.
Sorry, let me go, man. Have they made it so you can use the inputs on the dash as inputs to the ECU for conditionals for programmable outputs?
I don't know.
Not yet.
Evans, you're a Holly guy. See, yeah, they should do that for the money. For $1,800, they should make that available.
Yeah, not yet. That was something they were talking about doing and trying to get the CAN bus back and forth. That's what part of that whole CAN bus thing is there for, that they're working on. It's just not there yet, from what I was told.
Come on, Holly. That and test modes. Get them done.
Just give us some injectors and some coils without having to trigger some kind of RPM signal. And we can test each one individually. That's huge.
Right. So, anywho, what else? What else about that dash? Is there any? I mean, is it just like the other one? It's still got some of its own 5-volt or analog I/O. I mean, so
it's still got
sort of add some functionality to stuff if you're limited.
Yeah, I think the HP guys are going to like it.
Yeah.
Because I think you can do your bump box and everything right in the dash and not have to burn up anything with the ECU itself, burn up any inputs and outputs and stuff with the ECU itself.
Yeah, you won't have a data log signal for it into the ECU, but you'll be able to run it from the dash because you'll be able to use those inputs and outputs just like you were using them in the ECU.
Hey, I see some questions.
If that makes any sense.
Larry Norman. Listener Larry Norman. The RealTuners website says January 19th classes in Norwalk, Ohio, but also Illinois. Which is it? It's Norwalk, Ohio. The Chicago one the Rockford one was last weekend, and I tell you what probably happened is I copied one event to the other, and I think I probably fat-fingered the dates on the Ohio one, which is now over, but just pick the Norwalk one. It's there. I'll fix it after the podcast tonight. Or maybe during, if these guys start talking. Here we go. No, I got another one here.
Fastest small block. YouTube has a pretty good one that's more of an opinionated thing, but what are your thoughts on the stage injection using the Dominator? I like it. I'm a fan because you can now choose whether you want to blend it or turn it on and off at a certain point. So it doesn't have to always, like the old way was you turn on the first one and the second one comes on with it, and you didn't really have a choice to turn off the first set. And now you can actually make this first set turn off and switch to the second set if you wanted to.
They did what the Megasquirt guys have been doing for like 14 years. It's the you can assign a fuel table, a separate table to each set of injectors. So if you think about it, you can do some really creative stuff like a dual fuel or a octane on demand system where one fuel table is tied to a set of injectors, supply and pump and regulator that are 87 octane driving down the road. But as soon as you roll into the throttle, manifold pressure goes up. You phase those injectors out in favor of maybe a methanol setup with a second set of injectors and tank and pump and regulator. Some of the drag week guys are doing that. It's pretty badass, and you just keep the 2 tanks topped off and you're good to go. I've seen that a number of times and set that up for a few people over the years. Yeah,
that was available in what, V4?
No, not that one. It's V5. Yeah, there was a way to fake it. So Chris Beischer was pulling off a way to fake it, doing the same end result, but something with advanced tables. That guy's a rocket scientist. I don't know. I don't recall exactly how he was staging that setup, but he was doing an octane on demand deal on V4. But I know the V5 makes it way, way easier.
Yeah, it takes a lot of extra work to make it happen on V4. A lot.
Yeah. Hey, I see some other good questions coming across. What oscilloscope setting should you use to look at a 24x LS crank and cam signals using a benchtop lab scope so it does not have preset automotive settings? About to start tracing down a 2000 RPM misfire on a wasted spark setup on a 5.3. So typically you want to set it to measure DC voltage, okay, not AC, and you want it to read with 24X, you're going to be just with the positive probe, you're going to be on the signal wire of the crank sensor. Let's talk crank sensor. And you're going to watch that go low and high. It's going to go from about half a volt to like, those are 12 volt feeds, so I think they go to 10.5 or 11 volts, somewhere like that. Yeah, and you can literally turn the motor over by hand and see it switching slowly what the low and high voltages are if you hit it with a regular voltmeter, to give you an idea. But so you want to set your volts per divider settings so that your screen covers, 16 or 20 volts total, something like that. That way you'll see the signal. I mean, if you set it to cover 250 volts, you won't see the signal to be way down low. It's just like scaling a data logger. So yeah, 12 volts, he says.
You can time constant and bring it up and down. Depending on the RPM, you'll have to change that time constant.
Change the time constant.
That's where you can watch.
The simple way to think of that is the left and right, the horizontal zoom is the time constant, and the vertical zoom is the volts per divider setting. And you're going to try to basically zoom in on the signal when it's running. If you're having trouble figuring it out, hook your oscilloscope up to like a 9-volt battery or a 12-volt battery, and it should just go right to 12 volts. So, and that'll give you an idea. You're feeding at 12 volts, whatever the line's sitting at. Also, on a benchtop scope, you won't have voltage display. You just have blank dividers, and you set the volts per divider. So half a volt per divider, 1 volt per divider, somewhere around there. So then you kind of have to know. You have to kind of extrapolate the voltage just by looking at it. You can also get there's a whole bunch of YouTube basic oscilloscope tutorials out there for benchtop scopes. If you spend 5 minutes looking, they're pretty easy to figure out. And just message us too, CJ. It's not like you can't get a hold of me. Let's see here. What else we got? You guys being quiet. Everybody else
also
just
a ton of scopes available on there as well. So if you're looking for a scope and thinking about it, the easy one that we like is the Pico scope for your computer. And then there's probably
that's the model.
Probably a dozen little probably a dozen little handheld things that you can get for as low as like $20-$30 as a kit that you can put together, or $75 assembled, ready to go. I mean, there's a bunch of little things for guys who just need something to throw in a bag to be able to take with them without taking a giant scope that sits on a desk. If you want one that does a lot more functions and you need like detailed testing, then you need a bigger scope. But most of what the stuff we do on cars doesn't need super complex testing. It usually just needs to see voltage.
Next question, Nathan Inbody. Question, pros, cons of Holley's new traction control based strategy. I'm presuming he's talking about the V5 firmware update versus the Davis TC2 logic. Man, not enough experience with either to comment. Have used a couple of both now and not guru enough to sit there and make a decision. I mean, I know the Davis stuff. I don't believe the TC2 has the slew rate control. I could be wrong. Someone else check me up on that. But so other words, I think they're both similar. So
the slew is set up in your Holley. When you set it up for it, you pick how quick it recovers, how quick it adds it, and you can do all that. So that's all kind of.
What I'm talking about by slew rate is no. Slew rate is like the MSD term where it can adjust for change of drive shaft speed, rate of change of drive shaft speed. So basically acceleration, like if it sees it breaking loose, that's slew rate. So I don't know that the TC2 has that.
It does. That's the low, middle, high setting. So, and the way that works is it sees a certain amount, it sends out a signal to the Holley that triggers the low setting, which you set up as say 2 or 4 degrees. And then it sees a higher signal of slip, sees more slip. Then it triggers the middle level, and it sees a complete slip, and it triggers the high level. And that's all stuff you set up the amount of timing, but that's its slew rate is you get basically low, middle, high.
Thanks, Perduto, for the typo corrections there. Mike Perduto, fixed on the fly. I had the wrong date for the KSR class coming up here in a few weeks. That's probably why I had trouble getting people. I want to say I had trouble getting people to sign up for it. Now the damn thing's like 3/4 full already, which is more than I wanted because I'm breaking out our new advanced class. But, anyways, let's see. What else do we got here? Finally got some people asking questions. Okay, on a Fuel Tech FT500 using the IGN-1A coil, those are everybody's smart coils. Should you add the 12-volt supply through relay direct to battery and additional ground? I do. I like to give them their own dedicated relay and power supply. Ooh, check this out. Garrett Jacobson, Absolutely. You guys see his post on Facebook? If you guys know Garrett, says, anyone needing lab scope help, message me. Basic settings, what to look for, what scopes are worthy, anything. Scott's seen my arsenal of scope equipment as I teach that daily. I got you. Garrett is a friend of mine. He just moved from Northern Iowa area community college, which is a mouthful, but one of the baddest colleges around here anyway, actually for quite a long distance as far as having a performance training. It's a community college, but really heavily attended and well acclaimed community college program for automotive techs. And he was the boss there basically and just left to move to doing the same thing at a college in Florida. But anyway, so Garrett Jacobson, Tuned by Garrett, you may know him. That's his, when he puts his cape and outfit on, he's Tuned by Garrett. But anyway, talk to him. He says he's willing to talk and help people out with scope stuff. He does have an arsenal of that stuff. He knows, he's better at using a scope than I am. What else we got here?
Is it worth mentioning what things a scope can be used to do?
Sure.
Scott and Evans and I were having a conversation about diagnosing, crank issues and what it looks like in the scope, depending on, for example, sensor gaps.
I mean, it's better to put that and have some pictures prepared for that. So no, not really. I mean, what you can use them for, just kind of introductory stuff, obviously looking at cam crank sensor signals. You can use them to check the quality of your grounds by checking voltage at different points on the chassis that are both supposed to be 0 volts, and you check for current flow, or just a little bit of voltage. You'll know that there's current flow happening. So it helps you find clean grounds or trace out noise. I look for things like alternator noise in the power side and the 12-volt supply. I look to see if a noise or power source for something like an ECU, if I'm not putting it right to the battery, check to see if there's noise there. Like you'll see if you use the cheapest battery on-off switches for your NHRA compliant stuff. If you use the cheap ones of those that you get out of the catalogs, those turn to crap after like a couple of seasons, and you can see what they do to the power supply, add a bunch of noise and stuff to the rest of the system. So you can see that on a scope. What else can you do with an oscilloscope? I know some of my automotive tech friends have showed me some more advanced stuff, like you can monitor the starter current draw, and you can see if there's a cylinder that's down in compression by how much current it does or does not draw when the starter is spinning, right? So there's an advanced oscilloscope class given by the guys at the AES Wave website. Is it aeswave.com? I'm pretty sure. They got instructors on there, and the guy that gives the oscilloscope training to ASE techs he's got super badass tricks, way cooler than the stuff I do with them. I'm just into the basics, the integrity of the signals, the wheel speed and crank and cam inputs coming into the ECU.
And the difference of what you can do on things also depends on the level of your oscilloscope, because a basic one that doesn't record, obviously you won't be able to see anything and play it back. You'll be able to see it real time, but some of those things you can't see real time because it doesn't happen every single time the voltage goes up or down. The cranking issue where you can see different cylinders and see if one's low, you can only see that if you can record that, because it's going by so fast you're not going to see it on the real-time display.
I don't know, man. So most scopes, even the cheapest ones, read like 20 kilohertz frequency. So, I mean, they're actually the cheapest ones. Actually, I mean, I haven't run into stuff that I try to do without, a $80 do-it-yourself scope kits work pretty good even for the stuff I'm looking at, just saying. So it's not usually a problem as far as resolution. I mean, even that cheap Pico scope I like is just an 8-bit deal.
It's not the resolution of it. It's the catching it with your eye when it happens versus if it doesn't happen all the time.
Yep. No, you got to get creative and either record it with your phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were doing that with my cheap scope the other day, because my Pico scope, I didn't know how to log with it. I've since learned, but we were at a buddy's house trying to figure out a crank and cam signal deal, and we were just recording the scope with an iPhone camera. It would work really good because you could hear the car miss a little bit at idle, and then you could see the signal that was causing the ECU to flake out. And since the ECU was getting a crappy signal and the crank sensor, it was causing problems. Everything downstream was an issue. The spark was not going at the right time, and you could hear this little hiccup at idle, but not sure. And then you'd wind it up under load and get into boost, and it would break up and literally break a block in half if you kept testing it. So the first thing we had to do was figure out how to test it and identify that problem that, outside of beating on the motor. But lots of fun stories.
You can get inductive clamps for your scope as well, and you can see spark firing through the plug wires and stuff.
Current flow.
Yep.
You guys following these questions? I can hear myself coming through somebody. So let's see. I'm building the 427 Dart LS next with all the upgrades. Have TFS 245 heads and Diamond 2K pistons on Callie's billet crank with S485 billets. I need to buy Ross still. Is he saying rods? Tuner wants me to go... Rods is what he meant. Tuner wants me to go aluminum. Seymour. But I'm leaning towards Callie's Ultras. What would you recommend? I mean, I'm going to turn that over to Bewley or it's Short or Sewell if anybody's on here, but I'm going to just guess. Well, it depends on how much use you plan on getting out of it, because the aluminum rods are wear items. Go ahead.
I mean, if it's a street car, you put a steel rod in it. I don't believe that. I mean, Wrench's motor's got a steel rod in it. That motor sees north of 8,200 out the back door at 197 miles an hour.
And that thing's making what?
I've turned mine 8,500. It's hydraulic roller.
I'm not talking.
It's got a steel.
I'm talking
rod in it.
Spinning it like $10,000.
Sorry, Evans, you're stepping on those guys. I'm sorry, man. So hang on just a second. Go ahead, John.
Anything under 9,000 RPM, it can have a steel rod in it. The new Callie's Enforcer is the rod of choice. I've got a Dart block. I got another Dart block deal going together. Basically the same build as what you're talking about. We've got a 945 deck Dart motor, 245 solid roller, and we've just got a Callie's Enforcer rod going in it. Custom.
What's the intended power goal there? What was the turbos and all that he's using?
It's a wrench combo, twin 485s on a 427.
No, I'm actually talking about the question.
That's what he's talking about. Yep.
That's what I'm answering.
Gotcha.
He's putting together a wrench special.
Gotcha. Yeah, because we don't want those Enforcer rods have their limits too, as we've found.
Well,
Garrett,
I'm not.
Go ahead.
I'm not even going to. That's a blower motor and all that good stuff, and it's not even on the. What happened there has no bearing on this situation. I don't think. Because if there was a problem with them just holding the power, I would have found that on some of the other turbo cars, but I don't think that's an issue at all here.
What's better about the Enforcer and over the Ultra
as well?
Yeah.
The Enforcer is basically an Ultra I with thicker beam caps. The sides of the beam. They thickened them up. They put a little bit larger radius in the junction with the small end and the big end of the rod. There's about another 55 grams of material in the rods. The Enforcers average 707, 708 per rod, and just the regular Ultra I averages about 650. So there's another 50 grams worth of material in the Enforcer.
Okay, ready for the next one? I want to back up a little bit here. I missed it. Garrett Jacobson is on there schooling people about the oscilloscope stuff. Garrett, dummy, you just need to be on here with us. I've invited him before, and he's sat in before. You're free and clear now, buddy. He won't get in any trouble. But Daryl Yost says, and he's a buddy of mine, need more power on hot, humid days. Got a 69 Chevelle weighing 3,950 pounds. Oinker. Drag week car, of course. 540 cubic inch motor with an F2 Pro charger. Air to water intercooler. Need to pick up. My answer first, then we can listen to Evans or anybody else. I would say look at your inlet air temps first after the intercooler, and look at your pressure before and after the intercooler. Make sure it's not your limit. It's pretty cheap testing to do, and then figure out what's actually causing what you think is a power drop. Is it the resulting inlet air temps going up, or is it maybe the motor is seeing 12 psi less than what's in front of the intercooler? Those are my basics. I don't have enough info otherwise to answer that question, but that's where you'd start.
Keep in mind that the F2 is one of the most inefficient compressors that ProCharger has right now.
I was getting ready to say the same exact thing.
All right. Sorry.
But I wouldn't be surprised if he has a lack of power issue with an F2 on an engine that size. It's just due to heat from lower RPM.
Right.
But he does need to go through the
yeah. Oh, he's got to spend some money then. That's what we're telling him. Sorry, Daryl. Wasn't my intention.
Yeah. Upgrade F1X-12 or something similar.
Even a small F3.
Yeah.
The F2 is a good blower, but it works better on smaller engines that don't tax it as much.
I just want to know how the hell you got a Chevelle to weigh 3,905.
About the same way Dan's Nova weighs 3,710.
Drag week car too, man. They probably weighed it full of all the crap they take along.
I mean, don't they weigh like 32 or 3,300 from the factory?
Lord, no. It's not an F body, man.
Yeah, they're pigs to begin with, aren't they? Or heavy? I mean, I don't want to say pigs. I don't want to offend people.
They're not light.
What year?
Chevelle curb weight 3095, 3035. Looking online.
Oh,
must be.
Yeah, that's also not with a big block either, though.
It's not a. Yeah, I was fixing to say, is that a small block? Naturally aspirated small.
It's like a 327 or something.
Even if it's heavy ass iron, everything small block, and you put in a big block, it's not that much weight difference if you go to aluminum heads, and it's a little bit, but it's not like 700 pounds difference.
Dude, Coleman's drag week car weighs over 3,500 pounds with the AC and all that stuff in it. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't.
I mean, you start doing all the little safety equipment, cages, and all that stuff adds up. I mean, I added 300-400 pounds to my car over last winter, just safety equipment stuff.
Yep. All that stuff adds.
Air to water intercooler, water tank, water lines, pumps. One thing to check is if you're using, one thing you need to check on is water flow. As we progress and we get deeper into all these things that we used to not do are starting to become very good information sources. Like I would have never dreamed 5 years ago that I would have suggested to somebody to put a flow meter on the return line of their air to water intercooler system to check flow rate.
Right.
Now with like a Holly Dominator having the ins and outs that we've got to operate with, and the fact that you can buy a flow meter that'll measure 30 gallon a minute for less than $100, there's good data there because that can watch the health of your water pump, you know?
That's 100 pounds of intercooler, Terrell says.
Yeah, 100-pound intercooler is heavy as hell. That's like reminds me of that old Reichert Racing intercooler you got, James. That thing was like a
empty. It weighs like 40 pounds, and it'll hold probably 3 gallons of water or more.
Yeah, that's another 25 pounds right there.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt Carlton says, why does everybody worry about air temp on an E85 car when shouldn't we read EGT because it burns a lot cooler? Correct? No, dude.
Wrong.
No, double incorrect assumptions. And we love you to death. Don't get me wrong or anything, but we've learned that's not necessarily true. E85 is not methanol. It matters. The air temp is about getting oxygen into the combustion chamber and nothing else. So the cooler you can get it, the better. That's power. It's also longevity for its combustion stability. And EGTs, man, don't ever compare EGTs to anything other than the other 7 cylinders on the engine in the car you're working on there. Don't compare it to a buddy's car or previous installs. I've seen them where you've moved an EGT probe 60 thousandths into the hole and pick up 400 degrees across the board. So the goal is the EGTs are just a relative number in your own combo. And it's a good thing we don't have video going right now. My Weimaraner is going ape shit because I've got a 3/4 eaten homemade chicken Alfredo that Mary did tonight that's outstanding, and I'd love to finish it, but I'm having to talk the whole night. Dog is just over here going crazy over it. Tell him, T-Rex. Speak. Oh, squeak. Yeah, he's hilarious. He's all over it. He really wants that chicken Alfredo. No, dude, we're not giving you that. Because then he'll be just killing the house for the rest of the night. So.
God, can you imagine his digestive system afterward? Oh, boy.
No, we're not. No, we don't do that. We might do a little treat for tricks thing here or there, but we don't just let him gorge on people food. No good. No go.
No, that's not good for the people.
Yeah. Matt is thankful for our answer. Let's see. Can you play with individual cylinder timing to help with AFRs on a specific hole? No injectors, Timothy Brunnert. Timothy, all you can really do if there's a fuel delivery or air delivery consistency problem on that hole, and you're a carbureted deal like yours, you can just retard the timing to make it safe, but that doesn't necessarily make it optimized. You really want to get you want to get the air fuels right in every hole and the timing right in every hole is the ultimate goal. But you can get halfway there. You can make it safe. So what you got to do in your blow-through combo is just burn up some pistons.
For the carburetor, a lot of that is working on the intake and hiring a guy who really knows how to port an intake properly to even out distribution.
Or being able to... Go ahead.
In Timothy's case, the answer is biofuel injection.
Right.
But he won one of those Haltech ignition deals, didn't he? Got one of those for free?
Yeah,
I mean, I'd be running that too.
Yeah.
You could always trade it in.
Yeah. No, I want to see him mess with it, but yeah, you can play with the corner jets, I guess, but maybe we'll see. I don't know.
No, absolutely. You can, before we run away from this, you can definitely deal with stagger jets or corner jets. You can also make some adjustments, tiny adjustments on, air bleeds. So you can tune a carburetor to work around a manifold that isn't, perfectly.
You can, but I think the most important part there is to first spend some money on the equipment to be able to diagnose it. Either set up your exhaust so you can temporarily monitor air fuel of individual cylinders, or have an EGT set up to at least kind of point you in the right direction. Maybe. I don't know. Either way, we're spending your money,
or
Timothy.
Read spark plugs.
Reading spark plugs. Yeah.
My man.
Back in my day,
spark plugs and fuel
we walked
are hard
uphill
to do
barefoot
because
and
it's
pregnant.
wide range.
Sorry. Making fun of spark plug readers. My bad.
We're going to turn him into one of these days, Bill.
I mean, I can read spark plugs a little bit. We're turbo guys, right? You pull the spark plug out. If the ground strap is there, good. Put it back in the hole. That's reading plugs.
No, there's definitely a spot to look at.
Yeah, I know. We'll see. So who else do we got on here asking questions? Hey, is there, that's a good one. Go ahead.
Oh, here's one, Scott. This is the fact that this is asked to me is hilarious. Dave Kicksmiller asked me if I can tune the injector end angle to fix the rough idle in his LS.
Oh, dude, that guy.
Hey, why in the world would you ask the one non-tuner in the group that question?
Has that guy gotten under your skin too? I can assure you, with just a free hour of IEA tuning, I can blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I fixed so many of your tunes, Scott Clark gets not even funny.
Right. I hear you. It's like the guy that saved the day at my class. It's a good thing we had to get him on a conference call. And yeah, hilarious. Some of the stuff some of these aspiring tuners will say and do is just hilarious. Just be careful. Make sure it doesn't get back.
Come out of nowhere too is the crazy part.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like it's the what did they describe it
like
as?
The new kid on the block's the way I describe them.
No, it's the whack-a-mole tuners. The whack-a-mole. Who used that term? It was on the Do It for a Living podcast, and it was the guys at D3 at Delgado's shop. They called it the whack-a-mole shop. They keep popping up, and it doesn't matter how many you whack. They just keep popping up, so you got to allot a certain amount of resources to manage the whacking the moles. But anyway.
I can give a real honest answer to that injector end angle thing. If you put it so far out of whack that you don't get good atomization and not all the fuel burns, and suddenly you lean it out a little bit, or possibly get the fuel where it really wants to idle at AFR because not all of it is burning or more of it is burning, then you can fix an idle problem. But it's a Band-Aid because you're fixing a problem by moving something out of whack. It's better to actually just fix the real AFR problem and put the injection end angle where it needs to be for gas smell is the common thing that people fix, but it's not the gas smell. It's not the injector end angle.
Yeah.
Right. It's not necessarily that once you fix the AFR, occasionally it is, but rarely, as long as you fix the AFR and get the timing right, burn all the fuel properly, you don't get the gas smell.
Right. I almost never find myself searching for something to fix that idle with a big cam. Rather, I tune idle with a big cam without looking at the O2 sensor. Just doing it by feedback with the how much manifold. Till it pulls the most vacuum it can and the highest RPM I can get for a given throttle opening.
Where injector end angle comes in useful is when you're trying to squeeze every last little ounce of torque and power out of something before you get to a point where the injector is open more than the valve. Once your injector is open more than the valve, it doesn't make any difference. It only makes a difference before you get to that point. So at very low pulse widths, it helps with a little bit of torque. The difference is usually not a lot. It's the kind of numbers that you look for in engine masters, because 3 horsepower difference could be the difference of a win. But for the most part, that injector end angle doesn't make that much difference on your daily driver, daily race car. It doesn't make enough difference to worry about.
Not worth the time. But be careful. An engineer might tell you that it's a huge deal. Matt Carlton's following up again, said, no problem, Matt. He says, but customer's car's basic old school YSI blower and the intercooler is the restriction. So if we took off intercooler and changed to E85, it won't pick up power? ? The answer is not enough information. Need to know how much of a restriction that intercooler is. If those temps, what's happening to the temps. Basically, if you can get more air mass into the motor, is the bottom line. And that's a combination of air temp and air pressure. So sorry. Hey, Frank Neufeld's watching. I just wanted to give a shout out to Frank, by the way. Sorry, my pickup truck
brethren. If you lose 100 degrees from the intercooler, then you lost 100 degrees worth of power. So the power is probably there. The flow is probably there without it, but you don't see it because you don't see the power you just lost from adding all that heat to the air.
Right. Next one. We're getting some good ones now. Bewley, do you have something?
I was just going to recite the ideal gas law for a second there.
PV equals NRT or something.
PV equals NRT.
I didn't finish college. I'm not allowed to talk about that. So, John Purdie, what's the easiest way to tune cold idle when you can't trust O2? So, John, if your warm idle VE table or fuel table is good, then the way to tune the cold idle is by controlling how much airflow you give the engine, which is your idle valve or whatever's controlling that, and using the warm-up enrichment. It's the coolant temp versus it's enrichment versus coolant temp in the Holly table. It's under, I don't have my Holly screen up here. It's one of the enrichments. It's the one based on temperature and manifold pressure. Really what I do is I'll just use that and give it just enough fuel to keep it running and happy. Kind of play with it, raise and lower the values as it's idling, going through those temperature transitions. And then, lean it out a little bit till you can hear it stumble, and then put a little bit back into it and just keep it happy that way. Give it what it wants. Keith Varon, I've always tweaked my injector timing, if for nothing else, but getting a little more efficiency out of the engine. I don't disagree with you, Keith. Keith is a science fair project guy, though, too. I've known him for a while. He's the guy. Oh, dude, Keith, why don't you plug your business while you're talking on here? Anyway, the 24-bit tuning. They sell some really cool crank and cam stuff for small block Fords. Anyway, he plays with his injector timing. So I'm not saying it's worthless, but in the grand scheme of things, like the only time I've seen real power gains on an engine dyno or chassis dyno is when we've used way oversized injectors and moved that around, moved the injector end angle or just the timing of the injection event in relation to the intake valve event. You know, you see like 1% or less gain, but anyway. What else we got? Oh, sorry, 64-bit tuning concepts. I said 24-bit because I've been doing all this stupid audio shit. So 64-bit tuning concepts. Check him out. Keith Farron. Very cool. And he has an interesting point of view. We just need to have him on here sometime. Okay. Hey, Bill Armstrong, another student of ours. Saw him out in Denver, I think, last year. Have you seen any real advantage to a ball bearing turbos versus journal bearings from a performance or response standpoint? Stick car in this instance.
Yes. But it's minuscule. It basically comes down to the first 100 feet of the racetrack. We've back-to-back tested journal bearing versus ball bearing units. Similar size. It wasn't same make, unfortunately. And with the journal bearing, with the boost commanded at like 0.3, we could only mechanically make it in 0.9. And with the ball bearing turbo on the car, same size wheels, same compressor design, the turbine wheel was a couple of millimeters different just because we're going from one manufacturer to another. With the same 0.3 commanded, we made it in 0.5. So we were able to get the boost mechanically in 0.4 of a second quicker. To max boost, max commanded boost.
You know, I have a second. Guys are pretty happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on an auto car. And a stick car would probably see even better transient responses due to, obviously, load application and release with shifting and so on and so forth.
Well, I was going to say
recovery.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, James.
If he's not going to talk, I will. Tony Gagnon's in here talking about poor man's direct injection, making fun of us injector end angle tuning guys. I didn't realize a guy of Tony Gagnon's class listened to the show like this. Tony, you should just get on here sometime. He's a part-time instructor for the tuning school, but he's also like
Tony. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, you know Tony, right? You should just go ahead and get him on here if you want to. I love this guy. He's also teaches Air Force pilots, or is it Navy pilots? Trains them on systems type stuff. Neat dude. Like to get him on here. He snuck into one of my classes in Florida last year.
I was going to cover a little bit of that stick shift stuff.
Go ahead.
Bit. My mic got muted somehow. I was in there talking. And I was like, they can't hear me, I don't think.
Yeah, it was awkward for a second. Go ahead.
But yeah, I don't think the transient response is as much of an issue on a stick car because you're playing power management anyway, and you know you don't have to really build boost if you have the anti-lag and all that stuff set up. I mean, I'm lighting 285s that are journal bearing in less than a second. I'm hitting target boost from the moment I go wide open. It's like lofting over my target boost in less than a second. So as far as transient response, that would be something like down track that you would probably see the benefits on a ball bearing. However, it's easily fixed, you know, on a journal bearing turbo to just put it in a little bit earlier. So, or raise the launch boost up or, you know, do something with the tune up to, you know, get the power in quicker.
Have you guys played with oil pressure as a way to deal with that transient situation? More or less holding it down the low side for engines that make a lot of oil pressure?
That's not something I've played with yet, but I do have the Turbo Smart regulator on my shelf, and that's something I had planned on experimenting with to see if, you know, limiting the oil pressure to the turbo to 45 pounds made a difference versus having it have full engine oil pressure or not.
Yeah, I've not played with that myself.
So one of the manufacturers I was talking to here at SEMA today was making the point on two aspects. Obviously, sufficient oil supply. Secondly, very clean, clear, no restriction oil return. And third, actually managing at 40 pounds. I consider this was the Borg Warner guys, which makes a lot of sense when you see other motors with that see north of 80 or 90 or whatever it is, depending on how they control their oil system pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I can see there being something there. I just don't know how much it would be, and I can't speak to anything. I haven't worked with it. So I can't say one way or another.
Would one of you guys want to talk a little bit about the injector end angle and describe that for people who may be listening who don't know what we're talking about?
It's really hard to hear you over your background noise.
Sorry. So they're asking if he's asking if you want to explain to the people who are listening what we mean by injector end angle. James Short, that sounds like something you can explain easily.
Yeah. Basically, the end angle is more or less the end angle in reference to crank angle that the injector is going to basically shut. And the pulse width is back calculated off of that. So, it knows that a X amount of RPM and X amount of load that our target end angle is this. And if we need to pulse the injector, this amount of duty cycle, it knows what crank angle to actually start that injection at. So it back calculates it. But the end angle is basically when the injection pulse finishes. And the reason that's important is so that you're not spraying fuel, different times, each cylinder, different loads, different RPMs, etc. You can kind of fine tune that 3-dimensional table there to get that final injection pulse to finish at a target angle that makes the best peak torque. I guess that.
Yes, there you have it. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So part of doing that is just getting everything inside the cylinder when you want it in there to make power.
There's actually a white paper out there that Ford released talking about oversizing injectors and adjusting end angle. I think it's for Coyote motors.
Yeah, it was.
It's been out 6 or 7 years, but it's a good read if you can find it.
Yeah, that was one of their papers, why they didn't put direct injection in a Coyote motor starting out, because they apparently they never did get it as efficient as a direct injected motor. However, they got it like 95% there by doing the injector phasing and oversizing the injectors so that the fuel is, pinpointed at a specific crank angle.
I'm still trying to become a fan of DI motors. Sorry, not there yet.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either.
I like that they're keeping my buddies at the dealerships employed and working busy. That helps.
I hate them.
I'm waiting for.
Be sure to take your injectors out often and clean them when they're direct injection, because they're going to be full of soot and dirt.
Well, you got to run the walnut shell blasting. I saw them doing it at one of my buddy's dealerships that he worked at. I thought that was an interesting process. Some of them they take the heads off.
BMW has that as a service every 25,000 miles with the DI motors. Walnut blasting the intake ports.
Here come the walnut activists.
I'm curious to see how much better that improves on the LT5 with General Motors, considering the fact that it's got port and DI. See, because when you look, General Motors is like 5 to 10 years behind all the European manufacturers when it comes to direct injection. And, Mercedes has been doing mixed injection on some of their engines for 3 years already.
I'm curious to see what their operating strategy is for it, too. Do they only use that at wide open throttle? I bet you they squirt it some to clean off the back of the intake valves as part of a cycle deal.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had some part throttle cleaning strategy incorporated into the port injection usage.
I could definitely see that, because the older, a lot of people don't know this, but there's a function in the factory computers, even on the Gen 3 and Gen 4 LS stuff. It's called de-soot mode. And right at about 2 seconds after power enrich kicks in, it'll actually lean spike on purpose for like 0.2 of a second. You can, if you log the pulse width on the dyno or something, you can see the lean spike where it drops pulse width on the injector for a split second and then jumps right back up. And a lot of people chase their tail trying to tune that out, and it's actually a parameter you got to turn off. But they're their strategy is that little lean spike is lean enough to clean all the carbon off the tops of the piston, pretty much.
Yeah,
that's some pretty trick shit.
Yeah, I bet the LT5's got something incorporated into its strategy as well.
Hey, I got to catch up on Mixler since Dahlquist is out tonight. Hold on, we got some questions here. So Nathan's asking, Nathan Collar or Kaler? I know him. So chassis question. I find my car likes to be 53% on the nose. I'm able to take about 200 pounds out this winter. If I maintain 53% on the nose, is the chassis going to still act the same being lighter? I'm going to give it a big old maybe.
Theoretically.
The more I get into chassis stuff, the less I want to give advice because I don't know what I'm talking about.
The percentages, the desired percentages of what the chassis will do changes a little bit when overall weight changes. Like some of this heavy radial stuff is as heavy as 58 on the nose.
Yeah.
So you just have to.
That little bit of weight change won't make a difference. If you were making like 1,000 pounds difference, it would want something different likely. But at 200 pounds, it's probably not going to see that much of a difference. Maybe you'll have to change your rear shocks one click.
I have a hard time believing it must be a slick car if it's okay at 53 on the nose. Radial cars usually end up wanting to be way heavier than that up front.
The thing that I worry about, if he's taking 200 pounds off, and he's going to keep the splits the same, that pretty much means he's almost going to take 100 pounds off the nose and 100 pounds off the rear.
Mike Perdido had an answer that was interesting. Did you see his reply? The answer is it all depends on where the center of gravity ends up with weight removal.
Yeah, that too.
Because I would think if it's a powerful car that it might want to stand up a lot easier, taking that much weight off the nose.
Trying to get a chassis guy to join in here.
And you have to be able to take 200 pounds off evenly. Basically what Mike is talking about is you'd have to find the center of gravity and exactly say 48 inches in front of it, you take off 100 pounds, and exactly 48 inches behind it, you take off 100 pounds. Exactly. Then there'd be zero change in the center of gravity. But once you take off weight, that center of gravity is going to move a little bit depending on how close to the center of gravity you took the weight off. Acts like a lever, like a fulcrum.
Yeah, so if you're using, you can do that with scales and maintain the balance by just working off of the scales as opposed to having to go through the tricks to measure the center of gravity vertically and front to back. So that's one of the ways to get through it, but that's going to be very tricky to do.
The scales only give you a rough estimate of the center of gravity, and it does shift even if you keep the scale numbers the same. It's not drastic, but it still shifts depending on where you take the weight off.
Yeah, because the scale doesn't take into consideration the height of the weight when you take it out.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
Hey, here we go. Grant Bowman's got a cool question. I like this. Myself am a budget-friendly do-it-yourself guy. He's got a $1,600 budget. Any suggestions for a set of budget-friendly rods and pistons for a boosted stock iron block, stock crank, 600 horsepower LS motor? Machine Shop is telling him the Gen 4 rods are trash because they're made of powdered steel, but they also want to sell him a set of $1,600 rods and pistons. Thoughts on that?
I made 13 to the tire with stars and Wiseco shelf pistons.
Did you catch that?
My shelf combo for a 6.0 is $1,500.
But it's good for a lot more than 600 horse at the crank.
Yeah, we've made
2.5 times that.
At the tire with my rod.
Right. So if you're what that gives Grant is an idea of what he needs to spend for what power level. And I know from Bewley that it's at least proven, whether you're a race engine lover or not.
You need to find a different machine shop, because any machine shop that tells you a Gen 4 rod is trash just because it's powdered metal, they honestly have no clue about LS engines, and they shouldn't be working on them.
Well, they're not up to speed with modern stuff. That's the stuff your small block, big block guys would have told you 20 years ago. So you know what I mean? Top shops would have said that. So I mean, I'm not saying that it's a horrible shop. Go find a new place, but maybe show them some examples of people who are, doing okay. Now they might get pissy with you. I just don't want to spend no money, but I don't know, man. I see a lot of these guys making a lot of laps with these less expensive combos and doing it reliably because they got their tune in check. And they're keeping track of how that stuff's working. So I don't know. I'll stay neutral on that argument.
A legit 600 horsepower stock 5.3 would last forever.
Yeah.
I think. I swear you could probably make 500 passes on it at that power and it still live.
We've made that power on Gen 3 rods.
Haven't we made that power with just a cam upgrade?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we haven't even, you can make 500 crank horsepower with a 5.3 with some heads and a cam.
Yeah, I've got guys that bring me bolt-on combos that are way over 600 horse, and he said stock crank 600 horsepower. He might be thinking 600 horse at the wheels. Now, there's a big difference if you're trying to get 600 horse at the wheels through a TH400 with a big sloppy converter on a Mustang dyno or something that doesn't read real high. So let's assume he's talking 900 or 1,000 flywheel. And in that case,
flywheel, yeah, Gen 4 rod. A stock piston and the gaps opened up to 2830 on a 6.0 is more than sufficient. Now, this is all based on you having a tuner with a little bit of talent, like Scott or James or something. If somebody's never tuned a boosted LS before, and their idea of tuning a boosted motor is 25 degrees at 25 degrees of timing at 25 degrees of boost, then it's probably not going to live all that easy. But if somebody understands the path to getting power out of a stock bottom end LS engine, 600 wheel boosted turbo 400 on a Mustang, or even on James Short's stingy ass Dyno Dynamics dyno, I mean, I know guys that can make that kind of power on literally engines brought out of the junkyard, sprayed off with purple power, and bolted into the car.
Jonathan Coleman's in here talking about his car with a stock 4.8 crank, clearly at least 1,500 horsepower on 42 PSI. I think that's a conservative number. Actually, it's more than that at the flywheel. But interesting.
It's 3,630 pounds and went 142 last year.
Yeah,
in the 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
If
you keep the timing safe and keep it out of the heavy torque, high cylinder pressure area, and push the power band up a little further, they last forever at quite a bit of power.
Let me throw this out there too. It's not just the tune, but make sure that what's in the tune is actually happening out there in the real world. So if you make sure your timing is synced up, make sure you don't have ignition problems. If you have audible misfire, don't be turning up the boost if the thing even slightly breaks up. You need to hear it pulling clean. Use your ears. Just throwing that out there.
Stock cranks are off by 8 degrees, either direction.
You have to verify timing on one of these things. You have to know what it's doing.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a requirement.
I found a 58X that was like 4 degrees off the other day too. Usually the 58Xs are tighter, but I found a 58X and I had it set up the same way that we did on every other Holly. It was interesting.
My old motor had
Jonathan Coleman went 139 in the 8th on that crank. Damn. God, and those guys impressed me. The DVR guys, they can work magic. I don't.
The stock 4.8 crank's a little bit of freak. You got to remember that crank's only got a 3.25 stroke.
So the journal be stronger. Yeah.
The journal overlap on that crankshaft is more than any other stock crank in the LS lineup. And that crank is still going good. I mean, that motor's, that short block was purchased by, my current employee. Derek still has that motor and it still runs. And it's been faster in Derek's truck than it went in Jonathan's Mustang. Sorry, buddy.
Anybody here know anything about the Hammerhead small block Ford heads?
John Pryor runs a set of them on his X275 car, and I ground a cam for him for it.
Is it fast?
Yeah. It went. It set new personal bests after I redid the cam versus the previous cam that was in it. Function of the limited compressor size,
right?
But we did it on 8 pounds less boost.
Interesting.
So
let's see how that went. To follow up, I'm going to say jury's still out on that one. Let's see how that ends up being. That's pretty promising.
Yeah, the heads move a lot of air. From my standpoint, they're kind of like a canted valve LS, but as far when it comes to I'm not going to tell all my secrets, otherwise I won't have a job. But yeah, Yeah, they're a good head. They move a lot of air. They make really good power, and if you treat them right, they'll do a good job. They just take a different approach than something like a stock valve angle, high port, or something to that effect.
Groovy. Hey, look at that, man. We're already like 11 minutes over our scheduled programming time. Took us a while to get rolling here on this one. We should get Coleman and the DBR guys on here. Sorry, say that again. Anybody else?
We need to get Durard on here. His LS engine that runs like 520s. His LS1 engine that runs 520s.
Who is this?
Joe Durard. He helps Jonathan out. He was his co-pilot on Dragon. He has a bona fide LS1. You know, LS1 block crank.
So the Gen 3 everything.
Gen 3 everything. And that car runs 128, 129 in the 8.
My dog's barking at the deer outside.
There's a lot of people that don't give LS1s credit. Those things are a lot stronger than people let on, I think.
I remember beating on them in Parrish's truck, Jim Neuenfeld's truck, and those. I mean, we'd beat the shit out of the junkyard ones and learn on them, you know. But
it wasn't. It was the failure point. It was the ECU that was the failure point. It was the lack of control that it had. It had enough for OEM. It didn't really have enough for racing.
That's how we ended up on a Mega Squirt on that vehicle early.
I kind of disagree on that because Gen 3 PCM is a bad bitch.
Yeah, no, he likes it, I know. But back then, dude, and back in 2004, when we were doing this, like there literally EFI Live was where it was at, and it was like you can change your timing, but the fueling and the drive-by-wire was all screwy. So he fought with that, and he's like, fuck it, we're going to go cable.
It has come a long way, and then people also actually know how it works now, too. So it was a big learning curve back then because it was completely different than the LT1 stuff. So,
right.
And what's funny about Joe's car is like it's everything that's not supposed to work. It's a LS1. It's blow-through carbureted, and he sprays it 125 shot and limits the boost. And it's non-intercooled. So, and it's everything wrong. And it's on a 26 8.5 inch tire.
Hey, so, nitrous at least pulls the charge a lot.
Nitrous a little.
Yeah.
It's an interesting combo. It's an interesting approach.
Right.
Because they, I honestly consider it to be a nitrous primary engine, you know, type power adder deal. And then like the boost is just there to raise the density in the engine to like double what it normally would make naturally aspirated. And it's got a turbo 350 trans.
The benefit of nitrous with the turbo is that the nitrous will act like considerably more than what it would be on a naturally aspirated engine once you put double the boost into it. Double atmosphere.
Yeah, if you've got 15 pounds of boost on a motor.
215, yeah.
Yeah, you put 125 shot on an engine that's, you know, multiplied with 15 pounds of boost, 120, what would normally be 125 jet is probably resulting in 200 at the tire.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's funny though. It's just fun. He just goes out and beats on it. It's crazy. Ain't limiting boost this weekend. Did you guys get the billet 80 in it, or is it still put the Cat 75 back on? And it's pink. Oh, dang, Dave. That hurt. I think it's supposed to be red with like oxidation over top of it.
All right. I'm going to give it the old going once, going twice here in a minute.
The LS1 crank trigger is the 24 tooth. And what I've come to find out and what I think about them flexing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff is I I think the aftermarket stuff, since the production of the engine stopped, the aftermarket parts company is making it out of a cheaper metal, and the reluctor wheel doesn't have the structural integrity of the OEM stuff in the engines. Because I'm seeing aftermarket made 24X stuff that looks like an overspun CD after taking the motor to 7,500.
Yeah, I see the same thing.
But when you pull an engine and you pull an engine out and it's got the same reluctor that was on the crankshaft when the engine was built originally, those don't seem to fail. So I don't know what it is. There's something to it.
Yeah, I pretty much have a policy. If it's a newer build or something, spend the $200 on the billet one-piece reluctor and be done with it.
Or just use a 58 tooth.
I like the 58X, but be sure you got the gap right on the 50. If you're using a block that's set up for the 24X and you just swap in the 58X reluctor and crank, be careful. Make sure that the gap is what you need for the 58X versus the 24X, or make sure your machinist is doing that.
Yep, slightly different.
Right.
Yeah, there's 25 thousandths difference on the air gap between the two wheels, according to the books.
But isn't that gap made up in the sensor itself and not the actual block, or is it the block?
I don't know, but I've had to work on a couple of blocks here just in the last 2 months that had that problem. Found it on an oscilloscope because the waveform wasn't square.
Yeah, if it
was rounded.
If you got a 24 block with a 58 crank in it and you put in a 58 sensor, you have to grind a little bit to make it work.
The dart blocks,
the other slightly.
The dart blocks actually have a pad height for the sensor for a 24. If you run a 58 tooth reluctor in a dart block, check your air gap, because the landing pad for the sensor will be 20, 25, 30 thousandths too high. And you got to turn the sensor down just a little bit and bring it in closer to the wheel.
Lovely. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up.
TJ,
stick around.
Hey, thanks, TJ. I'm glad I'm a trip. Glad to see you in the comment section tonight. You need to come on the show.
TJ Grimes?
Again. Yeah.
Isn't that the guy that works on a boat? No, I'm thinking of TJ Maples. I got him mixed up with. I know. I follow both those guys. Sorry, my bad.
TJ Grimes at. Oh man, my mind just went blank. Adkins car.
Mr. Gagnon on here next time too. All right, dudes. So we'll be in touch here. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening, everyone. Kind of a laid-back show tonight. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully, you enjoyed a little bit of the technical Q&A. And I'll send you off with a little bit of music. Everybody have a good night. Take care. See you in a week.